Hey guys, welcome to this week's Under the Microscope series with Blue-Black Control. Thank you so much for joining me here today. So we've already done one series with Blue-Black Control, and since then I had a lot of people give me input, things to improve, and I took all of that and I think I made a much better Blue-Black Control build here today. The meta has been shifting a lot towards big mana. What I like about this deck specifically, similar to Blue-White Control, is that we do a pretty good job of beating up on big mana. If you take a look at our lands here on the left side, we have a ton of Field of Runes. We have 4 Field of Runes and a Ghost Quarter. So this is our land hate package. So if you didn't see my previous series with Blue-Black Control, let me give you a rundown of what this deck is aiming to do. Right? So we have Field of Ruin. Sacrifice Field of Ruin, destroy target non-basic land an opponent controls. Each player searches his or her library for a basic land card, puts it on the battlefield, then shuffles his or her library. A lot of decks in Modern do not run that many basic lands. This often feels like a strip mine that keeps you mana neutral. And so with that, we play 6 islands, 3 swamps, so we have plenty of basics to fetch out of our deck, while we are disrupting our opponent's greedy mana, whether it's Tron, Valakut, 3-color decks. Field of Ruin comes in really handy. With that said, I still run 1 Ghost Quarter because there's still times where you want to hit basics from your opponent's deck, and Ghost Quarter can hit basics. If you see Field of Ruin, it can only hit non-basic lands. So once you've stripped your opponent of all their non-basics and they start fetching out their basics, and then you can start hitting their basics with Ghost Quarter and really shut them off of key colors for their deck. So that is what I really like about this land hate package. We also have Spreading Seas. 4 Spreading Seas basically turns any of our opponent's lands into an island and draws us a card, right? So this is the mana denial package that you see here. And we also have a one of Crucible of Worlds. This lets us replay these Field of Ruins Ghost Quarters, get ahead on mana, and just a grindy game, and just blow out our opponent, ruin their mana, make sure we hit land drops every turn, get ahead in mana, and then once we're so ahead in mana, if we've reached that stage of the game, we have a lot of ways to take advantage of that. So let's go ahead and talk about the deck just a little bit. So why play this over Blue-White Control? The fact is you get to play cards like Fatal Push and Tassiger, and you have a really stocked sideboard that is useful in a lot of different matchups. So Fatal Push is a premier removal spell that does not fetch your opponent a basic land out of their deck, which really helps when you're trying to shut them off of certain colors, right? So the Spreading Seas plan, Field of Ruin plan, Ghost Quarter plan, is so much better when your opponent isn't fetching out basics from their deck. Fatal Push also allows you to interact with your opponent very early, and you don't feel like you're ramping your opponent, right? Like Path to Exiling a Tarmogoyf on like turn 2 or 3 always feels really bad. Now you're never really pushed into doing that, as most decks are designed to be able to play around that. But sometimes a Dark Confidant comes down on turn 2, or a Devoted Druid comes down on turn 2, and you want to be able to remove that cleanly without progressing your opponent's game plan of developing their mana. And then, of course, that plays into your plan of continually disrupting their mana as well, with Field of Ruin, Ghost Quarter, Spreading Seas. All of this comes together to make a bit better of an experience against the more aggressive decks that you need to interact with early. With that said, of course, Path to Exile is a fantastic removal spell. I'm not hating on Path to Exile, but it's far from perfect, especially in the early game. Moving on, we get to play sweet cards like Hero's Downfall, just as a one-of to be able to hit planeswalkers and creatures at instant speed. It's also nice because it's a 3-mana spell, which is weird, right? Usually you want more efficiency, but oddly enough, against Eldrazi Tron, it dodges both Chalice on 1 and Chalice on 2. So I normally had Go for the Throat here before, but I found more often than not that Chalice of the Void lands on 2 very often against Eldrazi Tron, so Hero's Downfall is able to circumvent that just a little bit. Then we play Damnation, 3 of those, because destroying all creatures is a powerful effect. Obviously, it's not uncounterable like Blue-White Control Supreme Verdict, but it is still just fine in most matchups. 4 Cryptic Command, because this is one of the #1 reasons to be in a solid blue color deck, right? So we're basically a blue splash black deck, and what that allows us to do is play one of the most powerful counterspells in Modern right now, which is Cryptic Command. You have, again, I said counterspell, but it actually does a lot of different things. It returns target permanents to hands, it taps all creatures, it draws cards, so many different things. We play a 1 of Jace, Architect of Thought, because it's just such a versatile planeswalker. fends off Lingering Souls or aggro, digs through your deck. It's a win condition if you get it up to 8 loyalty. Then, of course, we have Glimmer of Geniuses, and we'll get into why we have that soon, but basically it's an instant speed draw spell that really helps pivot from the early game to the late game, right? It's that little pivot in the mid game where that allows you to filter through your deck and find the cards that allow you to take over from the early game to the late game. So previously I had Scarab God as a win condition. I didn't feel like Scarab God was that powerful, and after talking to some comments, your comments on my YouTube, I found that, Scarab God is just too slow, too clunky, and most of the time you just never feel like you want to tap out for it, right? So why feel like you have to tap out? We do play mostly at instant speed, so let's remain that way. So we play Torrential Gearhulks as a 2-of now, which allows us to flash in or play an instant from our graveyard, and the instants that we most highly pick are going to be Glimmer of Genius and Cryptic Command. But we still have Mana Leaks and Negates and Fatal Pushes and Spell Snares and all this stuff here, and Hero's Downfall, of course. So, but it is such a powerful, it's like you're getting 10 mana worth of cards. You're getting a flash 5/6 creature that can block and attack and counter spells and draw cards. So Torrential Gearhulk is going to be the much better finisher for this deck, as it doesn't mean you have to tap out, right? It's flash, so you can play it on your opponent's turn, but you can still play it on your turn if you want to. So you're never locked into having tapping out on your turn. And then we also play a 1-of Tasker, because sometimes you just fill up your yard and you get to the late game. And again, Scarab God, 5 mana, like you don't want to tap out. Tasker can be as cheap as 1 mana, and then you can keep up Cryptic Commands or activate its ability. Really, really powerful effect. And let's talk about our final, at the end of our curve here. We also have our own version of Sphinx's Revelation. Now, it's not quite, some would say, as powerful, because that life gain is very relevant for blue-white to buffer and make sure you buy time and you don't die to a top deck burn spell or anything like that. So Pull from Tomorrow doesn't quite do the best Sphinx's Revelation impression, but it's pretty close. So it's draw X cards, then discard a card. And then the way that we're able to really pull off a really big Pull from Tomorrow is because of this Crucible of Worlds interaction. Once we get to that late game, if we set up Crucible of Worlds and we hit our land drop every single turn, we're going to be able to Pull from Tomorrow for X equals 7 or 8 around turn 9 or 10. And that's when we really seal the deal, right? And we can even seal the deal earlier, right? But Pull from Tomorrow really shuts down when you're up against fair decks, or you just need to refuel or something like that. Pull from Tomorrow does a fantastic job of doing that. Okay, did I miss any card here in the main deck? Of course, we're still running Search for Azcanta. The card is great. Great control tool, and it hits most of our deck here, right? It doesn't hit Gearhulk plus Tasigur or this 1-of Snapcaster Mage, but it hits mostly everything else. And the reason we run 1-of Snapcaster Mage is because we're running 2 Gearhulks, right? We don't want to, of course we have Fatal Push to flashback early, but Snapcaster Mage isn't that great in this shell here. So this is going to be kind of our only 4 creatures that you see right here. And then Mana Leak, Negate, Spell Snare, 4 main deck counter spells that are 2 convert mana cost or less, because we do run 4 Cryptic Commands here. So if we can bridge the gap from the early to the late game, we can handle just about anything. Let's talk about our sideboard here. What I do like about black versus white is that black gives you access to some really cool sideboard tools, right? You get access to Collective Brutality. This card single-handedly gives you hand disruption, hates on aggro, burn, combo, whatever you want. Collective Brutality is probably one of the biggest reasons to be in black right now. Liliana the Last Hope I really like as a Planeswalker to shut down like little critter decks, Company, Affinity. Yeah, those are the big ones. I'm probably missing something, but that's definitely where Liliana shines, and those can be some of your more difficult matchups, actually. Ashiok is a card I tried to include here today to see how well it will perform. I think it'd be really good to tap out on turn 3 for something like this, and it could be really powerful against combo. So like play Ashiok on turn 3, really hard for your opponent to interact with it, and then just start ticking up and up and up, and then, you know, keep up counter magic to protect it. Eventually you can ult, or maybe you hit something from your opponent's deck. Maybe you're playing against a mid-range deck or a fair deck or a creature-based combo deck, right? Then that -X is actually really relevant. So I really like Ashiok, and we'll try her out. We'll see if she's useful. I just didn't want to play 2 Liliana the Last Hopes, so I kind of diversified that 3 mana Planeswalker slot. Then we have 2 Nile Spell Bombs because hating against, let's see if we can pull that out a little bit. Yeah. So, because hating against graveyard-based strategies is really important right now. There's a fair amount of dredge. There's that new Asforetold deck. There's a lot of stuff going on, so it's important to have some grave hate. Similarly, Surgical Extraction is just such a powerful graveyard hate card. Not exclusive to black, obviously, but you know, any deck can use it. But we do have the luxury of being able to pay 1 mana for it. Then we have an extra negate in our sideboard. A lot of people ask me why no Counter Squall, because Counter Squall is really difficult on the mana, especially when you're playing 5 colorless lands. It can be really difficult to hit Counter Squall on turn 2 when you need it sometimes. So negate is a lot more manageable. We have Disdainful Stroke here to hate on Tron, Valakut, Eldrazi Tron, big mana, all that kind of stuff. Even Storm, I like to bring it in for Past the Flames and Gifts Ungiven. And then Dispel, just a really powerful way to interact with a lot of the stuff that's going on in Modern right now, like Collected Company, Gifts Ungiven, Ad Nauseam, all this kind of stuff. And then obviously Control Mirrors and things like that. Anyways, that's a quick rundown of the blue-black control build that I have for you today. We're going to do an Under the Microscope series, which means we'll play 3 matches, 3 competitive matches in competitive lobbies where I do pay tickets to enter. So there is something on the line here. So we will hopefully face some pretty competitive decks to get a feel for how this new version of blue-black control runs. But yeah, I think that's all I have for you guys. Thanks so much for watching, and stay tuned for the first match coming up real soon. See you guys soon. Hey guys, welcome to the first match here of Under the Microscope with blue-black control. Let's take a look at our opener. We have Serum Visions into Spreading Seas, which is pretty good. It doesn't quite interact if our opponent develops their board, but otherwise it's okay. Hopefully we'll find some number of instant sorceries. Torrential Gearhulk is not a play that we're going to be making anytime soon. Okay, Tron. We have a pretty good hand to fight Tron here. Fatal Push, probably going to be pretty dead in this matchup. Spell Snare is going to be a bit too late, even if they do have Sylvan Scryings. So I'm going to go ahead and bottom that. Next turn, we're almost assuredly going to Spreading Sea something to keep our opponent off of Tron. Okay, so it looks like we actually have a bit of breathing room here. Ancient Stirrings. Interesting. So we'll see what our opponent finds here. Karn. Okay, that's not Tron. Alright, but that does represent Tron. This second island here makes me feel like I don't care about getting these down yet. So we could Spreading Seas the Mine and then Field of Ruin something else. Let's just go ahead and keep our opponent off of Tron here as best as we can. Cryptic Command is a pretty sweet draw. It's something to flash back also with these big hitters here. So now our opponent is going to spend most of their time developing Tron, which will give us a bit of breathing room to set up our own mana. Our opponent just main phases the Expedition map. Makes sense because they probably don't have a land to play for their turn. Expedition map. Does that change anything? They could crack on their turn. No, they still only play 1 land a turn. The second Field of Ruin is kind of nuts. I kind of just want to play the Field of Ruin so that I can end of turn use it. Alternatively, I could have gone Snapcaster made Serum Visions here because we do have a bit of breathing room. Alright, looks like our opponent is just main phasing this Expedition map. Versus Power Plant, sure. Again, we're going to hit Urza's Tower here. We're going to get our black mana set up. Our opponent's, again, probably going to Expedition map here, but yep, makes a lot of sense. Urza's Tower, sure, but we also, they obviously don't know what we have in our hand here. We have a lot of good stuff. We could play out the Creeping Tar Pit here, or we could just play the Field of Ruin and blow up a land again. I kind of like that. And this means we can also keep a Mana Leak this turn, which is pretty nice, because we're definitely going to get an island in order to be able to hit Cryptic Command mana. But this is what's great about this land hate package, right? As we can see here, our opponent has a pretty greedy deck in terms of mana, and we're able to punish that. My opponent has a Sylvan Scrying here. No. Okay. They're just churning through their deck right now. Urza's Tower. That is the card that they fetched up, right? And I think I'm going to hit that one. I wonder if my opponent has any more basics. I think they probably have one more. No, wow. So they're out of basics. Now they're Spreading Seas. We could start cutting them off of green sources, or we could just keep up Cryptic Command. I'm not sure we're doing really anything else with our mana, so they have Chromatic Star and things like that, so I think I'm just going to go ahead and Spreading Seas, targeting the Urza's Power Plant here. Glimmer of Genius is something to do with all of this mana, because we're not really being super proactive here. If my opponent plays an Oblivion Stone, I am definitely going to Mana Leak it. Sylvan Scrying. Can't Mana Leak that, unfortunately, but they're still a bit away from Tron here. Urza's Tower. So if we draw Crucible of Worlds, we'll be in a really strong position. Sure, opponent cracks their star. They're still 2 turns away from Tron here, which will give us probably enough time to at least apply a clock of some sort. It's possible that we're going to want to cast both Mana Leak and Glimmer of Genius this turn, so that's why I played out the fetch land instead of the Tar Pit. There's this tower. Four, 6, Wormcoil Engine. Nope. That's not happening. Here, let's just go ahead and fetch up Watery Grave. Make sure to keep enough basics in our deck for future Field of Ruins. Spreading Seas is great. I'm actually going to keep that on top. We don't quite need the Serum Visions at this point. So here we can Spreading Seas the Urza's Tower, play the Creeping Tar Pit, and now we have Cryptic Command. Yeah. Unfortunately, we have to counter that. If they have a second one, it's going to be quite rough. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right. A flip Search for Azcanta would be really nice here. Maybe to find a Crucible of Worlds. And there's a Ghost Quarter, so that looks like that's not happening anytime soon. I kind of want to snap off Mana Leak here ASAP. Ooh, World Breaker, huh? Yeah, we could just kill it with... No, like Hero's Downfall can deal with a resolved Karn. This is kind of tricky, actually. Yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and Mana Leak that. They can start getting it back, which is really troublesome for us. Okay, these are 2 fantastic draws. we want both of these on top. I'm actually going to play this land here because we do want to make use of all of our mana as best as we can. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So they're getting out of range of snap mana leaks. Question is, do they have more gas, right? Ancient Stirrings is like one of their best cards here. We know they still have Wakaran left, I believe, that we saw earlier in the game with their first Ancient Stirrings, I believe. I believe that's all we know, though. So, Karn plus this card that they'll hit off of Ancient Stirrings. Wow, did they... Oh, no, they hit an Oblivion Stone. Interesting. They can pay for Mana Leak. I'll go ahead and Cryptic Command. Counter target spell, draw a card. Again, I'm doing this because we have all these Spreading Seas out here, and it would be quite a shame if something happened to them. Alright, but now we can start beating down. I believe we might actually have a lethal next turn. I mean, I guess they have Ghost Quarter, so it's not quite lethal. But... So they're going to go ahead and return Worldbreaker. And that will exile Torrential Gearhulk here. But that's also their whole turn. So I don't mind that too much. Here what we can do is Gearhulk into Glimmer of Genius, and then we can, because I want to find more Cryptic Commands at this point. That's really how I lock the game down. Ghost Quarter is interesting. Yeah, because they don't have another basic in their deck, as we know. And then we can... And now we can actually Ghost Quarter. I'm just going to Ghost Quarter their mine. Just keep them off Tron for as long as possible. And here we swing for 5. We have Snapcaster Mage Mana Leak up. And that should set us up in a really good position to win the game. It's like a Thragtusk maybe. Wormcoil. Yeah. And that should be game if they can't yeah. There we go. Alright. Tron. Disdainful Strokes. Negate. Ashiok is a pretty cool card, maybe. Surgical Extractions are a maybe. Spellbomb's probably not where we want to be. Neither is Liliana, and Collective Brutality is just too slow to pick out like Ancient Stirrings or Sylvan Scrines. Scarabot is definitely grindy, so we'll put him up for consideration here. I think we can easily cut at least 2 of these Damnations. Can probably cut all of these Fatal Pushes. Hero's Downfall is interesting because it still hits Karn, it still hits Worldbreaker and the like. So let's go ahead and bring these strokes in here, negate Ashiok. We actually have room for 2 more cards here. The question is Scarab God better than Damnation? Damnation could save us from some really awkward positions where like Wormcoil tokens have been left around for some reason. The thing is, like, yeah, we do have a lot of land destruction, but Surgical by itself is pretty weak. And then again, we never really found an opportunity to even tap out during that game for Scarab God, and we already have a tap out threat like Jace here. So I think I'm just going to bring in these 2 Surgicals and call it a day. Yeah. So they were green-black Tron, which means they could lead off with Thought Seizes here and the like. It's going to be pretty important to keep that in mind, that in this game too here, they might have some cards that better interact with us. They might even have things like Pithing Needles for Field of Ruins, Ghost Quarters. we'll see. We'll see. Obviously, we designed our deck in a way to be able to at least combat Tron in some capacity. Obviously, with our Field of Ruins Ghost Quarters. This hand is not keepable. One land, even on the draw. We don't really have any good way to interact with them, so I'm going to go ahead and mulligan that hand. That's actually a bit better. And I'm going to keep that Field of Ruin on top. That's fantastic. I'm actually probably going to, depending on how my opponent starts off this game here, if they lead on Forest, I'm absolutely going to keep up Spell Snare, because usually you don't keep a hand with Forest, unless, of course, you have Ancient Stirrings, or you have Sylvan Scrying. So I'm going to go ahead and just leave up Spell Snare here. We're not in any rush to Serum Visions. Next turn, we can even Spreading Seas if we want to. Chromatic Sphere, sure. That's fine as well. Aha. Okay, so they could have a Thoughtseize here. Yep. And Thoughtseize is pretty good. It takes away our Spreading Seas, most likely, but we still have Field of Ruin, thankfully. Alright, there goes Spreading Seas. Mana Leak kind of makes me think maybe I don't need to cast the Serum Visions yet. Although they might be thinking, why am I not casting the Serum Visions? Obviously, that would be most optimal. So this is kind of a tell that I drew something that I'd like to counter your spells with. Relic of Progenitus. I actually don't care about that. Yeah, it's going to hurt Crucible if we draw it, but that's actually like not something I want to waste a Mana Leak on. Expedition Map. Yeah, I'll Mana Leak that. Let's see if they have another land. They do have another land here. And an Expedition Map. Wow. That's pretty good. So they will have Tron online next turn, which is why I probably want to pop this right now. On the Urza's Tower. We'll get an island and cast... Well, actually, we can just keep up Spell Snare here. There's still 2 lands off of Tron. I guess 1 land off of Tron. If they resolve a Sylvan Scrying, it's just going to be the absolute worst for us here. In the case that we do draw Crucible next turn. Okay, so they're going to go main phase, Expedition Map, Urza's Tower, Chromatic Star, sure. Like an Ancient Stirrings into Urza's Mine would be quite challenging here. Especially because we won't be untapping with Cryptic Mana unless we draw untapped land right now. So we did not. So let's go ahead and lead on Serum Visions here. No Damnation, but I will keep Field of Ruin on top. And maybe if we can dodge a Tron threat right now, we might be able to survive this game. But we might just be 1 turn too slow. We might have just been a little too cautious with our Spell Snare here. Maybe I should have been playing more aggressively. Starting with a Crack Sphere is not necessarily a good or bad sign. If they just rip the Tron land, we might be in a pretty difficult position. We know we're not really drawing anything, so tapping this is a great sign as it is. They can't go the whole game playing around. Ooh, Thoughtseize. Thoughtseize is so good here, but we do get to get Field of Ruin off the top. Okay. Not bad. Let's see. So if they hit Urza's Mine next turn, ooh, and they play a Ghost Quarter, yeah, so that puts them at 10 mana, actually. Oh, which means they could Ulamog us out of the game, which means we probably want a Field of Ruin on their draw step or something like that. So if they crack Expedition Map here, then we know what land to hit. If they don't, then they don't have Tron. and then I don't feel the need to crack this Field of Ruin right now. Yep. So how many towers have we hit? We've just hit 1 tower so far. Yep, that's fine. Interesting. So they would get to have 5 mana this turn. It's interesting they tap for Urza's Tower here. Yeah, I'm gonna let that resolve. I believe we should be okay here. Urza's Tower. Yeah, that's the thing. I kind of expected that to happen. And now we can just freely hit that land, and now they're on 5 mana here. Let's get another swamp. Negate. So we could even throw out a Jace next turn and start getting some value. We could even tick them up, and that's a good win condition actually against Tron. Just steal one of their threats. Urza's mine. Okay. Ashiok, huh? Ashiok lets us keep up Snare plus Negate. Yeah, I kind of like Ashiok. Oh my god! Did I just actually? No. Oh no! Oh my god! I thought I just exiled 3 Urza's towers. Nope. Okay. So now we can actually mana leak a Worm Coil. We can negate. We can hit a Karn here. I think I'd rather mana leak Karn. Because I don't know when they could draw, like, anything. Disdainful Stroke is a fantastic draw here. What did I exile? So I got a Thragtusk, which is pretty nice. So I think we can just sit on Ashiok here and take it to victory. They just need to have, like, running gas here, basically. Wow, Gear Hulk. Let's just go ahead and get this Thragtusk out. Now we have a Gear Hulk, we have Thragtusk as a clock, and we're sitting on Disdainful Stroke here as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, let's Gear Hulk here. And that'll do it. That's how you beat Tron. It's not a horrible matchup for Control, especially if you design your deck in a way to be able to beat it. We have the sideboard tools, we have the Game 1 tools, and that's how you beat Green-Black Tron 2-0. Thanks for watching this first match of Under the Microscope with Blue-Black Control, and I'll see you guys for the second match soon.